Okay, so before I get to the disc that changed it all, uh, golf played with the frisbee started independently all over the country. We have no idea who was the first person to say how many shots would it take to throw this frisbee to that light pole. Right? We have no idea. The game of frisbee golf really had its genesis in 1975/1976 at Oak Grove Park in Pasadena, California, with the invention of the pole hole, the first contraption built specifically for the game of frisbee golf. In my opinion, the sport of disc golf began in 1983. I'm sorry if I get the dates wrong, I'm old, but I was fortunate enough to be there. I was at Oak Grove Park, and well, everyone was at Oak Grove Park back then. Dave Dunapace and Tim Selinsky showed up. They get out of the car, they pop open a box. The box is filled with translucent yellow, orange, and blue. They weren't technically frisbees, but they were frisbees we had never seen before. It was the Eagle, the Innova Champion Eagle. This is the first commercially available beveled edge golf disc that flew. I mean, it didn't just fly. You would have had to have been there. If you can imagine your life as disc golf. I mean, this is frisbee golf back then, right? And all of a sudden, somebody shows up with frisbees that flew 50% farther. They didn't respond to the wind. I mean, they cut the wind. It was like the most revolutionary, exciting thing in the history of our sport, barring the invention of the pole hole, probably. And and what comes out with that. Now, just a little bit of trivia. I believe the Eagle only had 6 original hot stamps. I mean, it was only around for a little while. If you have or if you have Eagles with all 6 hot stamps, I believe you have all 6 Eagles. Now, Innova, and I can't speak for them, but I believe because the sport was so small, the idea of building a brand new mold for a second disc, because the Eagle was a little bit understable, right? When you threw it flat, it turned to the right. It wasn't the best all-purpose disc, so I believe Innova wanted to come out with a disc that flew straight, that you could have more control over. Too expensive to build a new mold for this brand new fledgling company, and so they retooled the Eagle and made the Arrow. Now, when the Arrow came out, the Eagle stopped being produced, right? There's a finite number of Eagles in the world, Arrows too. But the Arrow was, an improvement. Now, after the Arrow came out, this disc came out. It's called the AVR. Now, the AVR, I'm going to piss off a lot of people when I say this, but ions and magnets and God, I mean, every disc manufacturer, Wizards, every putter made that people are using is an AVR. I mean, this disc I don't think it was originally made to be a putter, but as disc technology improved, discs flew farther and farther. This became the go-to putter. So the AVR is the gold standard of putters. No question. Everybody else copied it, right? No way to argue. The AVR didn't fly that far, so they took the AVR and made it a little bit flatter and called it the XD, which technically is called the AVR XD. It's the AVR extra distance. So that was the improvement from the AVR. Now, during the course of making this, there was obviously hits and misses. There was the ace. There was the hammer. What's the hammer? I mean, there was, like I said, everyone has hits and misses. But while this is happening, 2 other companies were hitting the market. I don't know which one came out first, so I apologize. One is not here, but it's a company called Lightning that came out of Texas, Steve Howell. And Steve was pushing this technology. I mean, and I'm not going to get in debate who copied who or da-da-da-da-da. But Lightning was coming out with some good discs. I mean, at the time, they weren't as good as Innova or Discraft, but they flew. They were golf discs. But the big mover and shaker, aside from Innova at the same time, was a company called Discraft. Jim and Gale, I should say, out of Michigan. And they debuted a disc called the Phantom, which was, again, understable. Everything was understable back then because it wasn't really believed that there was a need for an overstable disc, and that was just such a weird concept, as strange as that sounds. The Phantom Plus came out. Little side note, those is by far the most durable disc ever made. Every Phantom ever created, these came out in 1984, I believe. They're all still brand new. They don't scratch, they don't beat up, they don't bend or weld. But Discats came out with the Phantom. Now, you can't state this strongly enough. The largest driving factor, and apologies to all the volunteers of the PDGA back in the early days, but the rivalry between Discraft and Innova, and Lightning played a part too, but it was a smaller part, but they get credit for what they did. But the rivalry between Discraft and Innova, and capitalism drives innovation, the drive to control as much of the market as possible, both for financial reasons, but also personal reasons. It was a personal rivalry as well, in every way. That rivalry drove the sport in the early days of the sport. I mean, the tournaments that were sponsored, the players that were sponsored, all the money that got pumped back into the sport. I mean, it was good for the sport, but there's no question they were doing this.